What's up, guys? I'm back. Um, I'm gonna finish reading the passage I was reading last night about the trial of Socrates. I'm going to finish it with the last passage from Crito. This was some three different passages from some Platonic dialogues. Um, they're called the dialogues of Plato. And the first part I read from yesterday was Euthyphro, um, which was Socrates' encounter with this young guy who was deciding to basically prosecute his father for unaliving a servant of his. Um, this was once this was while Socrates awaiting to go on trial for his alleged corrupting of the youth and atheism. And then we got into the meatier part, the trial of Socrates, which was called the Apology, where Socrates gives a, a long defense of of what he was doing and saying why he wasn't wrong, and even if he was wrong, it was unintentional. Um, and in the process of that, he was convicted and he was sentenced to death. So the last part is a conversation that's taking place in Socrates' jail cell with his friends. So that's what I'm going to read. It's going to be very short, and then I'm going to end it unless people have any questions about it. Um, so if not, let me go ahead and read that. Let me drink some water first because I'm already pretty dehydrated. But this will be a much shorter part than the others. Uh, but no less profound. Okay, make sure the volume is good. Okay, so this starts again. Socrates has already been convicted of corrupting the youth, and he's been sentenced to death, even though he had friends, wealthy friends, that said they would pay a fine for him to be, released and just, be slapped with, slapped on the wrist. So here we go. Socrates says, again, this is coming from yesterday. So if you're lost on what I'm talking about, check out what I check out my live stream from yesterday, where I read the first two passages of the trial of Socrates, and it comes from a piece from Euthyphro, a Platonic dialogue, then the Apology, also a Platonic dialogue, and now the Crito. Okay, so Socrates says, uh, "Then, my good friend, we must not think so much of what the many will say of us. We must think of what the one man who understands justice and injustice, and of what truth herself will say of us. And so you are mistaken to begin with when you invite us to regard the opinion of the multitude concerning the just and the honorable and the good and their opposites. But it may be said the multitude can put us to death." Crito responds, "Yes, that is evident. That may be said, Socrates." Socrates says, "True. But my good friend, to me it appears that the conclusion which we have just reached is the same as our conclusion of former times. Now consider whether we still hold to the belief that we should set the highest value, not on living, but on living well. Crito says, yes, we do. Socrates responds, and living well and honorably and justly mean the same thing. Do we hold to that or not? Crito says, we do. So Socrates responds, then starting from these premises, we have to consider whether it is just or not for me to try to escape from prison without the consent of the Athenians. If we find that it is just, we will try. If not, we will give up the idea. Ought a man to carry out his just agreements, or may he shuffle out of them? So the question here is, he's been sentenced. I mean, he's been convicted and sentenced to death, and his friends are like, "Let us just break you out of jail and get you out of here." So, um, and so Socrates is like, "Well, let's consider whether it would be right to break me out." So even even in these last few hours, he's still holding like a philosophical discussion, namely on whether he should even escape. That's just how he was, apparently, at least according to Plato. Crito responds, he ought to carry them out. Socrates responds, then consider, if I escape without the state's consent, shall I be injuring those whom I ought least to injure or not? Shall I be abiding by my just agreements or not? Crito responds, I cannot answer your question, Socrates. I do not understand it. Socrates says, consider it this way. Suppose the laws and the commonwealth were to come and appear to me as I was preparing to run away, if that is the right phrase to describe my escape, and were to ask, tell us, Socrates, what have you in your mind to do? What do you mean by trying to escape but to destroy us, the laws and the whole state, so far as you are able? Do you think that a state can exist and not be overthrown, in which the decisions of law are of no force, and are disregarded and undermined by private individuals? Shall I reply, but the state has injured me by judging my case unjustly? Shall we say that? Crito says, certainly we will, Socrates. So his Crito is like, Crito is basically saying, look, I don't care about the state. Let's just get you the F out of here, them. And Socrates was like, hold up, let's would that be right for me to just escape? So he's being like hyper rational to the very last breath. Socrates says, and suppose the laws were to reply, was that our agreement, or was it that you would abide by whatever judgments the state should pronounce? What answer shall we make, Crito? Shall we say that the laws speak the truth or not? Crito says, I think that they do. Socrates responds, then consider, Socrates, perhaps they would say, if we are right in saying that by attempting to escape, you are attempting an injustice. We brought you into the world, we raised you, we educated you, we gave you and every other citizen a share of all the good things we could, yet we proclaimed that if any man of the Athenians is dissatisfied with us, he may take his goods and go away wherever he pleases. We give that privilege to every man who chooses to avail himself of it. So soon as he had reached manhood and sees us, the laws, and the administration of our state, no one of us stands in his way or forbids him to take his goods and go wherever he likes, whether it be to an Athenian colony or to any foreign country, if he is dissatisfied with us and with the state. But we say that every man of you who remains here, seeing how we administer justice and how we govern the state in our and other matters, has agreed by the very fact of remaining here to do whatsoever we tell him. And we say, he who disobeys us acts unjustly on three counts. He disobeys us who are his parents, and he disobeys us who reared him, and he disobeys us after he has agreed to obey us without persuading us that we are wrong. You might at your trial have offered to go into exile. At that time, you could have done with the state's consent what you are trying now to do without it. But then you gloried in being willing to die. You said that you preferred death to exile, and now you do not honor those words. You do not respect us. The laws for you are trying to destroy us, and you are acting just as a miserable slave would act, trying to run away and breaking the contracts and agreements which you made to live as our citizen. First, therefore, answer this question: are we right or are we wrong in saying that you have agreed not in mere words, but in your actions to live under our government? What are we to say, Crito? Must we not admit that it is true? So Socrates is saying, look, if if I had lived, my whole life in Athens, then basically I that was my social that was me agreeing to a social agreement with the state that I will live under its laws. And so now that the law works is is to take my life, I, am I am I right to now just break that law? I don't agree with to be perfectly frank. I don't agree with Socrates here at all. But I see where he's going. I do. it's, I get where he's going, and see this is because he has an underlying uh his, he has an underlying view of virtue ethics, and so he would consider it a vice to disobey the very laws in which he's thrived for his entire life. I get that. I still disagree, but whatever. We'll go more into this. So Crito responds, "We must, Socrates." Socrates then says, "Then they will say, are you not breaking your contracts and agreements with us? And you were not led to make them by force or by fraud. You did not have to make up your mind in a hurry. You had 70 years in which you might have gone away if you had if you had been dissatisfied with us, or if the agreement had seemed to you unjust. But you preferred neither Sparta nor Crete, though you are fond of saying that they are well governed, nor any other state, either of the Greeks or the barbarians." By the way, when they say barbarians, basically anyone who wasn't considered Greek was a barbarian to them. So the people of the north were barbarians. So the people who, we now today consider the white people, north, basically Northern Europeans, Western Europeans, they would be considered the barbarians. The people south of them, like the North Africans and the people of the Middle East, these people all would be considered barbarians to them. Anyone that wasn't of a Greek city state, part of part of Hellenistic Greece, would have pretty much been considered barbarian. And barbarian comes from a term meaning barber or Berber, which referred to them having beards. So anyway, clearly you, far more than other Athenians, were satisfied with the state, and also with us who are its laws. For who would be satisfied with a state which had no laws? And now, will you not abide by your agreement? If you take our advice, you will, Socrates. Then you will not make yourself ridiculous by going away from Athens. Uh, Reflect now. What good will you do yourself or your friends by thus transgressing and breaking your agreement? It is tolerably certain that they, on their part, will at least run the risk of run the risk of exile and of losing their civil rights or of forfeiting their property. You yourself might go to one of these neighboring states, to Thebes or to Megara, for instance, for both of them are well governed. But Socrates, you will come as an enemy to these governments. and all who care for their city will look askance at you and think that you are a subverter of law. You will confirm the judges in their opinion and make it seem that their verdict was a just one. For a man who is a subverter of law may well be supposed to be a corrupter of the young and thoughtless. Then will you be then will you avoid well-governed states and civilized men? Will life be worth having if you do? Will you associate with such men and converse without shame about what, Socrates? About the things which you talk of here? Will you tell them that the excellence and justice and institutions and law are the most valuable things that men can have? And do you think that that will be a disgraceful thing for Socrates? So here's another point he's making. Now this is a more pragmatic point he's making now. He's saying so even if he does do these, even if he does flee Athens and goes to another Greek city state, they will know that that he that he, they will basically know that he absconded from from uh from jail to get away from being sentenced to death, and will be treated like you know presumably, at least by his reckoning here, he would be treated like someone who is sketchy. Like this guy just absconded from jail so that he wouldn't be sentenced to death. So being that he absconded from jail to escape justice in Athens, he's probably guilty of the very things they charge him with, and probably and in doing so, those folks wherever he goes, whether it's Thebes or Megara or Crete or Sparta or any of his other Greek city states, will probably not he won't be well received there, according at least according to his reasoning here. Then he said, or he could just go somewhere else outside of Greece. Um, and again, for Greeks, they thought they were the they thought they were the center of the world. So anything outside of Greece to them was just barbaric. Like it was like uh, like an American deciding to live in what's a place I can say without pissing people off. um, I don't know, like a American deciding, "F this country. I'm tired of the laws here, or the politicians, or whatever. I'm gonna go move to Venezuela, or somewhere like that, outside of the Western world, right?" I could have used a better example, but eh, anyway, you get my point. So let me finish this. So Crito responds, "I have nothing more to say, Socrates." Socrates says, "Then let it be, Crito, and let us do as I say, since the God is our guide. But I suppose that I may and must pray to the gods that my journey hence be prosperous. That is my prayer. May it be granted." And that's it. There's more to but this is just I only read this passage that's available in this book. Let me guys show you the book because I didn't show it to you yesterday or the date. It's called The Experience of Philosophy. Sorry that it's written backwards. This is the sixth edition. This is from this was published back in 2006 when I had left when I had started graduate school. So this is an undergraduate text. Um, I'm pretty sure it's at this being the sixth edition in 2006 is probably at like the 13th or 20th edition now, and I don't even know. This isn't even the one I read in in my undergrad class, because we had it for I read it for a philosophy of literature uh, class, Um, and the one I read was like the second edition, not the sixth. And that's when the professor was still actually working at my alma mater. So that was a long time ago. By the time of the sixth edition, I think he had already moved on to a different university, I'm sure. Um, but this is used as a intro to philosophy text because it gives a bunch of different, readings from different points in philosophy. It starts from a sort of chronological because it starts already from the Socratic philosophers all the way on to Bertrand Russell, with many different philosophers in between. Um, but in any case, that's the book. If you guys are interested, is The Experience of Philosophy, sixth edition by Daniel Kolak and Raymond Martin, and it's published by Oxford University Press. Okay. Um, and like I said, the one I have this bundled up in my other old textbooks is this the second edition. um, a good thing is a lot of these textbooks now are probably online. You probably don't even have to buy a hard copy. For my own, I mean, I would recommend for folks who are actually studying this, you know, in their undergrad to keep one of the things we used to do. I don't know if college students still do this, but when I was in undergrad, most of us kept all of our textbooks from our major as reference tools. Like usually for like so if it was just an elective class or there was other things called core, they're probably called something else at other universities. So you had elective classes and cores. Elective classes were just classes you took just for the just because you need a certain amount of credits, right? And your core was similar to electives. Core was actually like an abbreviation acronym, which I don't remember what it stands for, so I'm not going to try to regurgitate that. But the core were like classes not needed for your major, but needed um, f- for your but needed for any undergraduate degree from my alma mater. So you had to have so you had to have like so for instance like you had to take foreign language classes depending on your which department you were in. So for my arts and humanities degree, which philosophy came under, I had to take foreign language, but there was an exception since I took 4 years of foreign language in high school that exempted me from having to take foreign language there. So good stuff there. um, if you're in college, it's already too late to go back to high school unless you need to go back to your state records department so you can get your transcripts from high school and say, hey, no, I took 4 years of foreign language, but I so um so that might be one credit. I mean, that might be one thing you need to take a foreign language. Um, and then everyone generally had to take a college level math course. We had to take a lab science. You had to take both a non-lab science and a lab science. Of course, you can just take two lab sciences, and that will cover both. So if you were a science major, that already covered it, right? um, and depending on the department. So if you were in a science department, you also had to take statistics of some sort, behavioral statistics or whatever. So had to take that. So those were core classes, whereas electives were just any you could take any class whatsoever and get credit for it. So you have a number of credits to graduate, of course. So in any case, most people didn't keep those textbooks unless they were really interested in the subject. So I did keep some of my non um, non major um, textbooks. If it was a subject if it was on a subject that I actually like, I kept the textbooks, and most of them I did keep. But Generally speaking, like I said, you should keep all your textbooks for your major because they do become reference sources later on, whether you go into graduate school or if you even if you go just on into the working world right after you got your undergrad and you just want to keep your undergrad textbooks from your major either as mementos of your time in college and studying that major as you might have nostalgia for it later, or you might be genuinely interested in what you were learning, so you want that information readily at hand. Or like I said, as reference tools, because you might go into something that is germane to your major. Like particularly like if you're in the STEM field, you might go into something pertaining to computer science or engineering. Um, even in humanities, you might go into something germane to your major. Less likely, much less likely, because it's just less jobs available for a lot of the majors in the humanities. But say like art history. Art history is very competitive, so you would probably want to keep those books, right? But yeah, so I have a bunch of those. So I have a bunch of those bundled up in my, all through my bedroom here. Now I have to ship those overseas when I go back overseas. I'm gonna have to figure a way to get all these books overseas without breaking the bank. I don't know how I'm gonna do that. I don't know if it'll be cheaper to ship them all in bulk or to do it piecemeal. I'll have to figure that out because international moving is more difficult. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed me reading that passage to follow from last night, which is the Trial of Socrates, written by Plato um, in his Platonic dialogues, written like this is just, written about 2,500 years ago, and a lot of it's still applicable to today. So I hope you guys like that. And previously, 2 weeks ago, I read The Value of Philosophy by Bertrand Russell, which was also in this textbook, but it was at the very end. The passages I read today and yesterday were from the very beginning. So maybe in the future I might find some more passages in here to read, but I don't want to just read at you guys. I rather like actually like converse with you on these things. But to do so, I don't know. To do so, I'll probably, you know, we'll have to do this, earlier during the day, where I'm confident I can talk with sane people. To put it bluntly, I don't trust that the people past midnight are of sound mind. To put it nicely. Um, so anyway, that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you got any questions, leave it in my comment section. Um, please like and subscribe. Please, it really helps me out. Like it literally costs you nothing just to give a like and a subscribe, and you can even share the videos with other folks. It helps a lot. Really, it really helps a lot. It makes the algorithm notice me, and it notices that you are noticing me. I notice you noticing me, noticing you. Let me stop. But no, seriously, it would help a lot if you guys like and subscribe and share the videos. But if you do have a few drachma to spend, in the terms of the ancient Greece, um, their currency, the drachma. If you do have a few drachma to drop on me, a few coins, um, you can hit me up. You can send me a super thanks, or you can go to the links in the description, and there I'll have a link to my Cash App and to buymeacoffee.com where you can actually set me up with Buy Me a Coffee. That's a real thing. Some people have already done so. Um, and you can buy memberships. I have memberships available to this channel now, and I have some members only content, mostly fitness and martial arts related stuff. But I'm willing to put some more stuff up there as well as I get more memberships, so that people can appreciate that content. But I want to, you know, make a bunch of content behind a paywall, if no one's gonna look at it, of course. So thank you guys. If anyone wants to ask me something before I go, you can. But otherwise, I'm out of here. Um, wasn't very many, you know, not any conversation I really saw on here. So that's all good. So, um, again, I'm out. Thank you for anyone who's watching, whether right now or you're going to watch this broadcast on replay. Appreciate it. Oh, and if you do want to support me, you can also watch the ads. Just go do something else while the ads are on and watch the ads. That helps me um, get a few coins as well. Anyway, let me stop e-begging you guys. I'm out. Thanks. Take care. And if you want more philosophy, either me reading more passages from philosophy, either from historical stuff or current, because I can read you current things going on right now too, but it might be a little bit, um, might be more a little more intense because there's more jargon and more background knowledge you'll be expected to have, which I will have to explain to you guys. But if that is something you want me to do, um, let me know. Or we can just have more um, bull sessions where we sort of discuss very basic concepts and phenomena uh, and philosophy or cognitive science. All right, take care, guys. Thank you. Bye.